Hey everyone. Hey everyone, how's it going? I wanted to talk about self-healing in this one on a more intentional basis because when I was going through the process of self-healing, I found there to be certain ways and thought processes of self that help along the process. So I'm going to share those with you guys here. So, number one is definitely you need to take the time. You need to make a conscious choice to decide to take the time. One thing I know for sure, especially for girls, and I mean guys as well, is the big one is the crying, okay? The way our society has been raised, there is a big thing about the way that we view crying, and we have to change that. We have to change the definition of what we believe crying to be. Most people believe crying is weakness, and again, I state, crying is not weakness. Crying is actually a very powerful emotional release, and it is necessary. In truth, I believe those that can cry, even around others, are actually the most strong, because the fact that we consider it so weak, if someone can cry around someone, truly let it all out, I actually think that that is huge vulnerability. And I think when allowing yourself to be that vulnerable in that moment is actually true strength. I think that is the truest strength. So for all those that think that crying is a weakness, I actually think allowing yourself to cry is the truest strength that you could ever have, especially because of the way society views the way we cry. So in other words, the thing about crying is it is necessary to release. We have been told our whole lives to not, but I cannot state or stress enough how important it is to release those tears. If those tears do not come, it's okay. It's about taking the time, but trust me, those tears always come. The thing about those tears is the reason why they need to be released is because it is an energy that is holding on to many things attached to us. And when we let those out, that is when we actually release them from us, when we free them, when everything changes. Okay, so what I was saying though is girls tend to, when they wear makeup, not want to cry. And so they will hold themselves back from crying. Guys also, when they start to tend to cry, will hold themselves back. So what I'm trying to say is you need to understand that by teaching yourself this habit of holding back, every time you're about to cry, you're creating a habit of your mind and body to consciously, unconsciously start holding back your tears. Now you have to understand, how long have you been doing this? Most of us have been holding back our tears for our entire lives. Some of us, if we're in our 60s, like we might haven't cried since we were kids. You know, you have to think about how long you have been holding back these tears. Some people might even think they don't even have tears to cry because they've been holding it back so long. But in truth, it's because it's buried so deep. In truth, the tears are there. All right. So the first thing we have to do is make sure that we have the intention that we are open to the healing. And if you don't wish to cry in public, at least take priority to try to take intention to cry sometime when you're alone in a time that you wish to. Now, when I say that you take that time, I don't mean that all of a sudden you're going to cry. Some of us might because we've been holding on to it so long. Another thing is when you're on the verge of tears, when anything brings you to tears, that means that you are so full that you need to release those tears. If you don't release those tears when you're that full, oh my gosh, so much is going to happen to you. And I'm sorry, yes, in physical ways, yes, in a way where you might explode at someone, yes, in so many ways, because you need to know that that energy is beyond full in you and needs to release somewhere. This is the thing that we need to understand about energy. Energy at some point will need to come out. There is no, okay, energy cannot be transformed or created nor destroyed. It can be transformed, sorry. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Meaning that just because you push it away and don't deal with something doesn't mean it's not going to come back. Most of us that put things and don't deal with them, we think that, oh, I'm not going to deal with it and it's gone. I'm sorry, that's not the way life works. Life works that it's gone for now, but it's going to come back later. And it's up to you if it comes back bigger or smaller. And it usually comes back bigger when you don't ever deal with it. And it comes back smaller when you want to deal with it in little things. Or, you know, some people are good at dealing with it in the big. And sometimes because you're forced to deal with it in the big, it makes it so it happens. Sorry. All right, sorry about that. So that one was about crying and why. Okay, the other thing about the crying is normally the crying is kind of when we can't control, when we need to let it out is kind of the first sign that we don't have room to suppress things anymore. The cry is kind of the first sign that things need to come out. The thing about it is normally when people come to this point, they let those little bit of tears out and then continue and keep pushing and thinking that now they can take on more. The thing about that is it proved to you right there that by releasing a bit, you were able to take on more. Now imagine if you released further, how much more room you would have and how much more everything you would have to be able to take on more. And that is why crying honestly changes lives. It changes your experience. It also helps you to realize what is bothering you. Okay, so crying, number one. Number two, and when I say this, it definitely doesn't have to be in these orders. I don't do anything in order. I take them and I try them in order, and then I try and put them however they are. And then that's what you learn in life too, is the formulas, how you create the formulas for your everyday life. So another one that I think is huge is definitely intention. Intention kind of covers everything. So when I got into this, I didn't understand that what I was doing was intention. Now, what I mean by intention is I made sure to sit down with myself and I would talk to myself. And in those times, I'm going to share with you what took me a while to figure out. When you have self-talk, it is important to recognize the self-talk that you give yourself. Is your self-talk negative? Is your self-talk positive? Does your self-talk actually help you, or does your self-talk put you down? I noticed at the time when I was young, because I did a lot of this self-talk learning when I was a teenager, I learned that most of the self-talk was negative. I also learned that most of the self-talk put me down. I also learned that a lot of self-talk was expectations that I believed that I guess I had put on others because of the way that I was raised. Now, when I say that, I mean that as a humanity, we all do that. We all do that. And we don't do it intentionally at first. In truth, we do it because we're kind of raised in a society and we're conditioned to believe in things a certain way. And what I learned from that too is where we're raised and what we believe in is completely different from people raised a different way anywhere else. And that is also when I learned that, in truth, while we like to believe in common sense, there is actually no true common sense, because it's not like there was a book on common sense written and every single person in the world learned it. So how can we believe that everyone has the same common sense? We just don't, because so many life experiences lead to different things that in one person's view of common sense, that makes sense. But because of someone else's common experiences, that does not make any sense. And we have to recognize the different perspectives. So about that, what I mean is, when I was going through my self-talk, I noticed how much I was putting myself down and how much I was not happy with myself based on the expectations that I believed that others had on me, based on the expectations that I had on me, and based on what I felt I was supposed to be based on how I was raised. Try to wrap yourself around that sentence. So, my point being, I used to say I can't a lot. I used to say I don't understand. I used to say there's no way. I used to say impossible. I used to say so many things that would lead me to not having answers. I would so many times believe that, and this is something about us as a society as well. We believe and are raised that the answers are outside of us and that we need the things outside to fill us. Now, the thing about this is, while in many ways it can work for a while, it doesn't work always. What we need is we need to fill our cups first, to be able to have more to give to others, to be able to help them fill their cups. But if we don't have full cups and we continue giving to others, we just deplete ourselves and become empty. And this is exactly why self-love is so important, is because when we don't have self-love, we expect someone else to fill our cups. And when they don't fill our cups the way that we need, we blame them and blame them and blame them. And that is just a never-ending story, because in truth, what needs to be filled is your own cup of self-love. You need to fill it, and the other person doesn't know how. And you don't know how to fill your own cup, so how do you expect the other person to know how? All they're doing is guessing randomly, and that takes so much energy and effort when they need to fill their cups too. And so if we were all to take the time and responsibility to try to fill as much as we can our own cups, and then as well receiving and giving to other people's cups, the world would be such a different place. So what I'm talking about is we need to change our minds on I can't, I don't, how can I understand, I can't understand, that's too difficult, all this kind of stuff. So actually what I did was, and this is crazy, is because this is actually how I did learn everything. The moment I did this, my life changed. I started, instead of saying can't, would say I can. Instead of saying impossible, I would say I'm possible. Instead of saying imperfect, I would start saying I'm perfect. Instead of saying I can understand. I will understand. I am able to understand. I can understand. From there, I can know. I will know. I'm able to know. Do you understand? Right there, that flipping of my language already changed from I can't, meaning that it's not possible, to I can, which means it's able to become possible. And in that took away so much pressure. And in that, it allowed me to try to understand, meaning though, even though something seemed way over here and I couldn't understand, I would say I am able to understand this. And somehow I would find the way to be able to understand this. Even though it wasn't a straight shoot of I understand, I was able to be led to whatever way it was for me to understand this. Instead of me just saying I can understand this and leaving it there and not creating any way or anything to try to get there. Or even saying I can't understand this and trying and being led completely away from being able to understand that, because I am the one telling myself and limiting that I can't understand this, and so I put it away and I do everything else besides understand this. Whereas when I focus and say I can understand this, this is now here closer, I've drawn it to me, and I have made an intention to be able to understand this. And that is why intention is so important, is because intention is what is kind of like the law of attraction to us, to ourselves. We are what tells everything around us what we wish to experience. Meaning when you say you can't understand this, I'm not able to, you have just told the universe, the world, the energies all around you creating what you wish to experience, that you can understand it. And so they created your wish. They created your experience that you asked for, not realizing there that you limited your experience. So for me, the other thing is, I do not set limits. I don't make limits. The thing about it is we have been raised in so many limits. We have learned to draw so many lines on everything. And that's not bad. The thing is, when you learn about everything, the energies in male and female form, and you learn that male is quite linear and straight and female is quite wavy, and this is everything. This is everything creation. Okay, this is the Adam and the Eve, and I'll explain that soon. But that the male is so structured and straight and the female is so wavy, then you start to understand that while we need both the balance of structure and flow, that having too much of any, when you start to go extreme, is not entirely the best. It doesn't mean it's the worst, because we have experienced both. The point is, though, the times that we're in now is about the balance of both. And so to experience the extremes is going to be more difficult for your experience. Not saying that you can't choose it. You totally can. It just makes your experience more difficult, because the thing that is meant to be supported right now, the energy, is the balance, because it's the growth that we're in. So it's innate in all of us. I want to be honest about this. The thing is, we are all affected by the same energy. We are on Earth. There is no different energy that you are affected by. The thing is, we are affected by different energies because you choose and allow what you're affected by the little energy. So what I mean is other beings, other whatever energies you talk about. But the energy I'm saying that we're affected by all the same is the experience of Earth that we're going through right now. Every single one of us has that same source, solar flare energy hitting us. None of that is different. The only thing is different is the little ones of what you allow to affect you, because that is in your allowance. The only thing that isn't is we already chose to experience on Earth. And based on choosing to experience on Earth, we all come in with the same energy, which is balance of free will and choice, and figuring out what realities we wish to experience to set us in our growth for our soul growth, right? And also raising of every single thing, which is the Earth's own chakras, the solar system's own chakra. Like, we're just raising everything right now. Every single thing is raising. Okay, so changing the way that you word things, allowing yourself to cry, taking that time to sit there. So another big one that I'm going to say right now, and I'm going to get into more of this when I start getting into the insecurity episodes where I help myself get out of insecurity, and I hope to help you get out of it, and that's by learning to love yourself. But the number one thing is to be able to sit in front of the mirror and stare at yourself and talk to yourself. So I even did this while I was crying, because during those times is when I would talk to myself. So all those words that I told you to switch, I actually did that by sitting in front of the mirror, bawling my eyes out, and trying to learn to stare at myself in the mirror. Now, I'm going to say this because this is what I went through, and I get people to do this, and I have not yet met someone who is able, from their first try, to go stare at themselves completely in the mirror, eye to eye, both eyes, eye to eye, and talk to themselves about themselves. and loving themselves and being proud of themselves and so much. There are ones that think that they can and they go up there and they try, think like, oh yeah, and then they realize the depth that happens when you actually look yourself in the eye and how much we run away from that. So if you can sit in front of the mirror, okay, I would say even for 2-3 minutes, good for you. But I honestly say if you can do it for 5 to 10, and if you can do it for half an hour, and if you can do it for beyond, that is when you really got it. So my point is being able to sit in front of the mirror in whatever emotion that you are going through and staring at yourself and talking to yourself. Talking to yourself, asking yourself questions. Why are you feeling this way? What is it? And the next step is to be completely and brutally honest to yourself, okay? Now, this is the thing. A lot of us have a hard time being honest at all. And when I say that, I don't mean you're not an honest person. But to be completely and brutally honest, most of us are not that. To be completely and brutally honest, it means to admit your scariest fears, your deepest desires, your the things that you wish no one knew, the things that you're scared about, the things that you love but don't wish anyone else to know. It's all those embarrassing things, the things you're ashamed about, the things that you wish to do but might not, the things that you don't share with anyone, the things that you haven't even voiced to yourself, the things that you haven't fully gathered from your brain to fully say out because you're too scared. That is what completely brutally honest means. So I sat in front of the mirror and I talked to myself about every single thing, about my deepest desires, temptations that may not be accepted, about my most embarrassing things that may not be accepted, about the things that I'm ashamed about that I didn't accept about myself, about the things that I didn't forgive, the things that I feel guilt, the things that I am ashamed. Like I went through all of those, and then I came out of them loving myself because I didn't hold any of those in harsh regard, because I from there learned, why is it that I felt those things? Why is it that I am drawn to those things? Do I still want them after I talked about them? And this is what I noticed. When you actually go and face things and discuss with yourself through them, most of them you don't actually wish to do in action in human world to actually experience. Many of these are just thought processes of things affecting us, and when we don't allow it to go out, they stay there and cycle and cycle and cycle and create things within us that aren't real, and we hold on to them. And this is what creates the scenarios for things that we need to start nipping. This is what creates the scenarios for jealousy. This is what creates the scenarios for every single thing. This is what creates the scenarios for fear. This is what creates the scenarios for all illusion. So when we actually sit and discuss this stuff with ourselves or with others, with whoever, when you actually discuss and get these things out there, it actually changes a whole lot within you, and it makes it so that you decide what actions you actually wish to take. And the thing is, when you talk about these things, it's actually very freeing. Now it's out there, and now it's not within you anymore, and then you can make better decisions. So in truth, I can't even tell you how freeing this is until you go about it yourself, because I have been free from so much weight on my shoulders since forever. Because once you become light, you really do feel the weight. You feel the weight so much that you don't understand why we weigh ourselves down so much. So another thing I'm going to share with you quickly here is, with all my physical healing that I have actually been going through, because I've done my emotional, and I mean emotional is tied with physical, and I'm doing those last bits right now, and wow, it's amazing. But what I'm trying to say is, in my physicality for the last 6 years, because of the profession I was doing, even though I was out of alignment because my hip was out of place, because of my toe that put that out of place, which put my shoulder blade out of place, which put my hand out of, like, my whole side of these two fingers down, all the way down to those two same toes, that whole side I didn't use, and I didn't know until recently, because now I'm noticing my smaller weak muscles on that whole side, how my whole calf is indented because I didn't use that whole strip of muscle that went down to my toes, how my foot and walking pattern had completely changed, how that leads to my ab, how that leads to my shoulder, how that leads to my rib cage, how it leads to everything, how it led to my whole life. I'm experiencing this whole thing down, and I had no idea, and now it's back up, and all the muscles it takes to just hold me up. What I want you to recognize is that I, in those 6 years, did not even notice it. I just kept taking on and building on, and that whole time, I am building so much muscle because my job was very physical. I am building so much muscle around my damaged body, meaning that my none of me was in place. My shoulder was out of place, would let my fingers to be out of place, which led to not good experiences. Okay, I thought I had like carpal tunnel and tendonitis and etc. at my age, and I was like, I don't get how this is happening, but it was all because my muscles were shortened based from these injuries, which my toe was out, which my hip out, and I kept building muscle on top of these. So I use other muscles which are now kind of bigger than my muscles I'm supposed to use, and so I'm building on those weaker muscles and trying to let go of those strong muscles that aren't supposed to be that big. But what I'm trying to say out of all this is listen to how much we compensate. That was one injury that turned into several injuries over so many years, and I kept being injured throughout all those years, building on my injury, and then it's taking me now time to rehab that. And rehab takes a while, not as long as it took for me to injure myself that badly, but it takes time. The thing about it is I never used to be so connected to my body. And so what's interesting is this is the first time I've been so connected to my body, and it's really cool feeling every single part of me, the joints popping back in, the tendons healing, the muscles changing, the different ones pulling now, my watching my body slowly change. Like it's insane. It's insane. And what I'm blown away by all this is understanding that the whole time this is happening, how I didn't realize what I was doing. How I just kept going because I had to keep going. And what I'm trying to say is we do this as a humanity. We keep going and going and going that we don't understand what we're doing. We don't know that if we just took a breath and time for ourselves right now in this moment, how much where our world is going would change. Because right now we're just on this machine that's going and we have no idea where we're going. And in truth, it's leading to a ton of destruction because we don't understand consciously what our choices are doing. We don't even know that by pushing ourselves so far, how much damage we're doing to ourselves in our human forms. I mean, where the world is at and where humans are at is proof enough for me that we need to take the time for ourselves. So that's up to you. That's why I'm doing this, is because I know a lot of people don't know their own way, and I have found a way that I feel works. I'm not saying it's the only way, but I've been able to help a lot of people through it. So just know that while I share my way, it's still your way. Take the inspirations, take whatever way is yours, and try. Remember, everything is trial and error. So the next big one, and this will be my last for this one, is remember, life is basically like an experiment. You are the test subject, and others around you allow you to see whatever you do. So the way I looked at life is it's a formula. And I am one thing and someone is another thing, and that equals into whatever. Someone, anything, whatever. Equal. Equals whatever. And from there, what happens? And so for me, I would take an action that I would decide, and I would use it that time and see what the reactions were, and my own. And depending on that experience, if it was something that I enjoyed or it went well, I would try again. Or if I didn't like it, even though it went well, I would try something else. And it's in these trial and errors and deciding and doing different things that you start to work out and understand what works for you. And understand that just because it works for you doesn't mean it'll work for everybody else. But at the same time, things along inside of what works for you can help others bring them to what works for them. And yeah, it's a lot of understanding that life is wavy and straight and working it out wherever it is that works for you. And that is part of the flow. It is honestly about finding the formula that works for you and knowing that we all and everything has their own. So I hope these tips were helpful, and yeah, good luck on your journey. Take that time, and again, it is about taking that time. So in whatever it is for you, you don't have to sit in front of the mirror. You can lie down, you can do what it is for you, you can sit in, you can do whatever it is for you. If you ask me, it's yes, because in truth, it's whatever it is for you. Remember, no limits. It's just about where you go. So in that moment, whatever you do, if you're able to go there, then do it. But if you're not and you're distracted, then you know that too. And it's up to you, whatever experience you decide to create. So remember what your intention is too. How deep do you wish to go? Because maybe you don't wish to go that deep, and maybe you do wish to be distracted, or maybe you wish to go all the way. Just so you know, life will give you whatever you ask for. You just have to mean it with true intention. So if it's blocked a little bit or wavy, it might take longer to get there. But when you have true intention, it'll happen like that. The other thing about it is to know, even when you have true intention and you think you want it like that, are you sure there weren't other blockages that you don't even know about? Because in truth, yes, it will always come. And it will always be in divine timing, meaning when you are truly ready. But you do have to ask for it, because the universe cannot give you anything that you do not ask for or allow. And I mean that. Meaning that if you're experiencing anything dark or that you don't want to, trust me, in some way you asked for that. And if you want to test me on that, say right now that you don't allow it and mean it. Mean that you don't allow it anymore and see if it affects you. But also, in that, were you truly not allowing it? Because is there something in there that is wavy, that is not allowing you to truly be aligned with the not wanting it? All right, love you everyone, and good luck, and we will be talking further and further soon. But I'm excited. I hope you guys try some of this stuff out, because I cannot stress enough how much all of this is super duper helpful.